And now I will be focusing on reading and the reading and the use of English paper. Okay, so the reading and use of English paper, the duration is 1 hour and 15 minutes, and it has 7 parts. It includes a range of tasks that allow you to show different types of abilities. Multiple choice, open close, word formation. Don't worry about the terminology. I'm going to go through it in detail. I will be focusing not on all the parts of the exam because time is limited, but I will focus on the ones that I think may be more interesting, and also not only based on my experience as a teacher, but also having a look at the questions that you have posted. Right, so we're going to focus on part 3, which is the word formation. Is this text that has some words at the end of some lines. And what do we need to demonstrate in this part of the exam in part 3? Well, what we need to show is that we have vocabulary knowledge that includes word formation, so prefixes, suffixes, the use of compounds as well, that we can understand sentence structure, so we know when to use a verb or when we need a noun. That we also have an understanding of the text that allows us to choose maybe a negative prefix or a plural form, and then of course that the spelling is right. So let's look at the approach to this part of the exam, and then we will look at an example. So how should we approach part 3? The most important thing that we do first is that we read the whole text. Okay, we need to read it quickly. Okay, we cannot read it in too much detail, but just read it quickly to get a general idea of what it is about. Okay, we need to focus on meaning at this point. Then, when we have read the text and we have an idea of what it is about, we can focus on each of the gaps. And for that, we will need to read the whole sentence and maybe the paragraph. Okay, so we will need to look at what comes before and after the gap. Once we have done this for each of the different gaps and we have all the different answers, it's a good idea to read the whole text again quickly, so we can have an idea and see, and we can check that the text makes sense. Okay, that what we have written, the words that we have chosen really make sense when we are reading the text. So let's look at an example here. So this example is taken from Test and Train, is one of our learning tools, and as such, it gives us some tips. Here, for example, if you click on the light bulb, you will see that it is advising you to read the whole text quickly to see what it is about. Right, so here you can see that the options are displayed. Okay, the correct answer is displayed. And this is because I wanted to show you some examples of what I meant. Okay, in some cases we've got words such as vision here. And what we need to do is to make an internal change to the word. Okay. So in this case, because we've got abilities here and the gap is right before, we may think we need an adjective, right? Which is the correct option here. Then in this case, we've got the word research, but it is followed by a verb in plural, okay, with have. So this is telling us that what we need is the subject, and that this subject should be plural because we've got have discovered afterwards. And then here, unaware, we are choosing a negative prefix to make this word. Okay, and why negative? Well, because we've got the but here showing contrast. Right, so these are examples of what you need to look at. In some cases, the key is going to be very, very close to the gap. So right before, right after, and the gap. But in some other cases, you will need to read the whole sentence to get the idea of or to understand really what you need to complete the gap successfully. So these are just some examples of what the type of changes that you may need to make to the different words. And then, as I said, super important to read everything quickly to make sure that you understand the text, that the text flows, and that it makes sense. Right, so we are moving on to the reading and use of English part 4, which is the keyword transformation, you know, where you have the leading sentence, the keyword, and then the second sentence for you to complete. So what are we looking for in this part of the exam? What we're looking for is to test your flexibility and range when you are expressing meaning in different ways. And there is also a focus on grammar, vocabulary, collocations, and so on. Let's look at a bit more at the focus and a bit more detail. So these are some of the words that you may need to use in this part of the exam. So articles, verbs, thinking about auxiliaries, verb tenses, passive voice, conditionals, fixed phrases as well, linkers, prepositions, pronouns. So you can see there is a wide range of words that you may need to include in this part of the text, but as you can see, they are kind of grammar words rather than content words. So let's look at how to approach part 4. What are the key aspects to bear in mind in this part 4? Well, the most important thing is that you read the first sentence carefully. The second sentence must mean exactly the same thing as the first sentence. So it's important that you check that the content which has already been covered outside the gap. So you check what is in the leading sentence and what is in the second sentence. Okay, so unusual names, we've got names, unusual, characters in his stories, Paolo is also here, often. So really what is missing is thinks of. And then you have the keyword that you mustn't change. So what do you think would be the correct answer for this gap? Okay, Nancy came first. Well done. Comes up with Paola. Excellent, Isabel. Well done. Comes up with fantastic. Blas as well. Well done, Emma. Okay, so correct. Super fast. Very well. You're ready. Okay, so right, so you came up with the correct answer. And what do you need to do before you move on? Important maybe to ask yourself these two questions. Have I changed the keyword? have I written between 2 and 5 words? Okay, because this is the limitation, right? You need to write between 2 and 5 words. And I would maybe add, have I repeated or have I included any words which are already in the sentence? Because this is usually the case. Sometimes we are so into the exam that we may repeat a word and we don't realize. Okay, so these are important questions to ask yourself before moving on. So indeed, comes up with is the correct option. And as you may know, in this part of the exam, you can get up to 2 marks per correct answer. And we say up to 2 because the answer is kind of divided into 2 units. Okay, and here, as you can see, in the little feedback box, you will get 1 mark for comes up and then another mark for with. Okay, so first you need to identify the first part and then the other part with. Okay, the 2 parts that make up this answer. So something important to bear in mind that, for example, here probably you wouldn't make the mistake because already comes with the S, but in some cases you may see that people forget the S, and then although they have come up because they are missing the S, they wouldn't get any points for these parts of the answers. So really it's important that you pay attention to detail and that you are sure of what you are writing. Okay, so now I'm going to combine the theory, not the theory, but my recommendations with some questions for you. And there were quite a lot of questions about time management and how to effectively manage time, especially in the reading, the use of English parts, techniques to save time, address the reading part correctly, because at times answers are tempting and more than one answer seems correct. So how can we help? What can we do to manage our time better and more effectively? Well, I'm going to answer these with a question for you, and I would like you to stop for a moment and think about what in your opinion, what good readers do. So if you can tell me in the chat box if you can think of a good reader, a person who reads effectively and efficiently, what can they do? And Nancy Maria says skim and scan. Well done. Yes. Anything else? Read through the text, get the general idea from Lisbeth. Miriam, underline the most important things. Read fast. Don't read fast, read carefully. Well, a combination of both, probably. Okay, read the question so you know what you are reading for. Yes. Trying to paraphrase. Okay, get the keywords. Identify the essential part of the text. Okay, underline keywords. So a lot of underlining. Good, good, good. Okay. Read for the gist. Main idea, skimming. Stepping into the same idea. Imagine the scene. Okay, well done. Yes. Indeed. You were mentioning reading quickly, reading carefully, scanning, skimming. Yes. I think the key is to be able to decide on the best subskill depending on the task. Indeed, there will be times when you will need to read carefully, but some of the times you will need to read quickly to get a general idea of what the text is about, or to try to identify where specific information is being mentioned. So really, the crucial aspect is to decide on what reading subskill to use. when to use careful reading, which is linear, which is slow, which is going to give you an accurate idea of main ideas, supporting detail, and then also combine it with fast reading when necessary. So skimming, reading quickly to get a general idea what the text is about, scanning, reading quickly to try to identify specific information, specific data, and then search reading, which is also reading quickly, but trying to identify areas where a topic is being discussed. Okay, so the combination of both, being able to know when to use which one is probably the key. What for sure you won't be able to do is to read carefully all the different texts of the exam. What we want to, at this level, you should be able to choose between careful reading and fast reading. So that's why time is limited and often feels very short. But it's because of that, because you are not supposed to be reading everything carefully. You are supposed to combine fast reading with careful reading. What other things, what other abilities do good readers have? Well, they can recognize paraphrasing. You have mentioned these. Good readers can understand synonyms. They can identify synonyms, different ways of expressing the same idea. And I have to say that this is not only about reading. This is also very useful when listening. This is also very useful for writing and speaking, to show that you have a wide range of structures, of course, suitable for the level. Good readers also understand referencing. What is that? The use of pronouns. Okay, she, when referring to Victoria, so you don't repeat it again. Her, so any use of pronouns is also something very important to understand the structure of a text, and it's therefore something that readers need to do well. Also work out meaning of unknown words. There is always going to be a word that you don't understand, for sure. I think this is also the case in your mother tongue. But the important thing is that you decide if this word is vital to understand the main message, and if so, if you can try to work out the meaning of unknown words based on the context, based maybe on the type of word it is, if it's a noun, if it's a verb, if it has a negative prefix, and if you decide that they are not useful to understand the message, then you happily ignore them and you continue reading. Okay, more questions coming from you. Tips and techniques for the part 6 and 7. Part 6 is the one where some sentences have been removed. And part 7 has a longer text broken into different chunks, different paragraphs, or different shorter texts and questions for you to match. So how should we approach part 6? We start in the same way as in the previous part 3, I think it was. Read the text, ignore the gaps to get a general idea of what it is about. Then focus on the first gapped paragraph. Read it carefully. Look at the words before and after the gap. Go through the different options to see which one fits. You have to do this quickly. And then try to identify words that connect the option, that's the sentence, and the paragraph. Then you go, once you have done this with the different gaps, I'm sorry, Manuel. It is challenging. It's important that you think, okay, the extra sentence, the one I haven't used, why doesn't it fit? Okay, so you have also you devote some time to think about why it doesn't fit, and finally that you read the text again with all the different sentences that you have included, and that you check, does it make sense? Does it flow? Yes. Okay, I can move on. Let's look at an example of the one of the least favorites of your least favorite parts of the exam, from what I can see here. Okay, so you've got the text with gaps, and you have the sentences which have been removed, and of course are not in the right order. And we're going to focus on the first paragraph with the gap, and then we're going to go through the options. And option E got our attention. Okay, and we're going to try to identify words that could connect this sentence with our paragraph. Right, so we've got here the use of he, here we've got him, it's, which could be referring to the unexpected, affects us the most, which could be a way of saying critical factor, right? So these are the clues, the hints that are giving us, the text is giving us to tell us this is the correct option. Okay, so of course, it's important that you get a general idea of what the text is about. And then when you are going through the sentences, you go through the sentences quickly. And then is when you go into the detail and you read carefully to try to identify these words, these hints that are telling you that this is the correct option. Part 7, questions, longer text or shorter texts. What do we need to do here? We need to find specific information, which could be anywhere in the texts. And as Abril said, we need to underline keywords in the 10 questions. It is very important. We are not going to read 10 times. Okay, this is very time consuming. So it's important that we underline the keywords and that we are ready to identify paraphrasing. Okay, so we're going to be searching for meaning, not words. Okay, sometimes when you see exactly the same word in the questions and in the text, maybe you should be a bit, okay, let's see. Let's wait and see if this is the correct answer, because it may be tempting, but maybe it's not the correct answer. Yes, I will give you an example in a minute. So here we've got our example, part 7, questions, texts. What do we do? As Abril said, we're going to identify keywords. And then we're going to go through the, we are going to identify the keywords for all the questions. And then we will quickly go through the texts, quickly, okay? Scanning just to see where we can find something that is being mentioned there. Right, so we've got our paragraph and we've got satisfaction. It was really rewarding. Okay. Better performance, to see myself improving. Okay, determination. Okay, she was trying to gain confidence. She was building her experience by tackling more challenging waves. Okay, faster, more powerful, more dangerous. Okay, so she kept going. Okay, despite the challenges. And as you can see in this text, we don't see any of the words in the questions. But what we see is that the paragraph is paraphrasing the keywords in the question. right? So this is just an example of how we can approach this task maybe in an effective way. More questions for you, from you actually. During the exam, do we have extra time to fill in the answer sheets? Well, you will see. Okay, in the instructions, you will have this information. You must complete the answer sheet within the time limit. Okay, so there will always be very clear instructions about how and when to complete the answer sheet, right? So if you don't remember because you are nervous, it's a stressful situation, we all know. So don't worry, it will be there for you. More questions. There was a question about read and improve, and also questions about how to improve skills faster, books, platforms that we would recommend, especially if you are not very interested in reading. Okay, we've got this platform, Read and Improve. And as you can see here, once you log in, it is free. Okay, you can choose the CFR level and you can choose different texts. Here, for example, you've got one on carbon emissions. And then the good thing is that it is a learning tool. So you can hover over the text and get information about the word class, the definition with examples, words that usually go with these words to develop the knowledge of this vocabulary. And then you can also write a summary and get instant feedback. And the texts have an indication of the level, the CFR level. Okay, so you can get a text that is suitable for your level. And if you want to access this tool, it is here. You will need to register and Write and Improve and use the same logins. Everything is explained on the website. But if you have any questions, let us know. And then there were quite a lot of questions about how to practice vocab and grammar and language at such high levels. Well, you can practice vocabulary using, for example, English vocabulary in use. It is one of our learning tools, learning material, and there you can find a variety of topics and also you can practice or improve your knowledge of word formation, compound words, phrasal verbs, varieties of English. So there is a lot there for you. And the good thing is that it is at the right level of ability, which is sometimes challenging when you get to higher levels of ability. You have the explanation and then practice, which is connected to the theory. So that's an option. And of course, I would recommend reading a lot. Okay, and when reading, trying to understand also, or not understand, but be aware of certain aspects that are involved in knowing a word. Okay, so when we know words, what do we mean by knowing a word? It means that we know all its forms. It doesn't mean that we know how to build related words, which would be very, very useful for part 3. That we know how it is used, when it is appropriate, how it relates to other words, how it collocates, if we can spell it, if we can pronounce it correctly. So there are a lot of aspects that we need to understand